Okay, welcome to week 9. We're going to talk about contracts and agreements. First and foremost, if we haven't made this abundantly clear in the descriptions and everything else, I'm going to say it once again. We are not lawyers. We are not offering any professional legal advice. We're going to give you some tips and tricks based upon our experiences, but that's it. This is not legal advice. Do not sue us. We're going to start off by talking about contracts. So contracts, these are going to be those things that you're going to sign with either a coach, consultant, or a client. And that's how we're using the term in this particular session. Contracts can mean a lot of things, but we're using it when I say contract. This is an agreement between you and a client or you and a vendor of some sort. And this is not going to, like I said, include contracts with banks or with, anything like that. So we aren't going to talk about vendors. We're just going to talk more about consultants. The vendors is going to come later, though. So one thing I might use client or customer. They mean the same thing to me in regards to this session. They don't really mean the same thing to me, but in this session, they are the same thing. So I might use them interchangeably. So just know that if I use that, I'm speaking of the same type of person. I use the word consultant kind of as a catch-all for anybody in that offers a service like a coach or some other kind of expert. So consultant is anybody who you're paying to help you do something in your business, and client or customers is who pays you to do something in their business. So another side note, you're probably going to hear me say it depends or depending or something along those lines very often, because there's really nothing standard about contracts or agreements. Everything's negotiable. So none of this is set in stone. When I mentioned something like, well, it might depend. And that's, something that you learn in grad school, that every answer starts with it depends. So a contract in a nutshell is just an agreement for you to provide something in return for cash, or vice versa. You're going to pay somebody cash to get a service from them. So that's all that we're talking about here as a contract. So like everything else in this section, we suggest that you consult a legal expert if you have any doubt about what you're signing or doing. But these types of contracts are generally a little bit easier because it's just kind of laid out in terms of you need to provide this by this date and whatever. They can get complicated, but for the most part, these are a lot easier than some of the legalese that you might have to read for other contracts. So as a client or a consultant, doesn't matter. The two most common contracts you're probably going to see are going to be a non-disclosure agreement or a master services agreement, consulting agreement, something like that. So your non-disclosure agreement, or NDA, is generally designed to protect the client from the consultant, being you, or possibly whoever you're paying, from stealing or using information for their own benefit. So if you're an honest person, this shouldn't be a problem. If you're a trusting person, you should probably get everybody to sign an NDA. There's plenty more that can go into the NDA, especially when you're dealing with like sensitive material, patents, new technology, et cetera, et cetera. But unless you're doing something super secret or cutting edge, then an NDA is going to be pretty standard. It's just, I'm not going to go out in public and talk trash about your company or share details that I'm not allowed to share with the public. NDAs generally have some sort of expiration date, so 12 to 24 months afterwards. And generally whatever the consultant creates for that client is the property of the client. So the consultant, if you create some awesome, new formula for whatever, that's, on the client's dime, that's property of the client. NDAs, you can download these off of most websites. They're pretty boilerplate. And again, if you're getting into something that's more sensitive, you're going to want to get an actual attorney involved in it. But for the most part, this is something that you can pull offline. Lawyers might argue with us on that. But again, if you're an honest person or whatever, if you're just doing a job, like it's more of a formality than anything, but it's definitely still something that should be done. Our advice for consultants out there, just don't steal. But for clients, if you have sensitive information, you should get a lawyer, like I said, and this is going to protect your intellectual property. And you should also think of other things, and this is outside of the contracts, but you should think of other things like providing company computers to consultants so that you can monitor or control whatever data or info is being shared. But I mean, for the most part, nobody's going to steal that awesome Excel file that you created to track your product sales. I mean, trust us, like it's not something you really need to worry about. And even if you do, it's an Excel file. Like, I mean, there, formatting is not copyrighted or patented by any means. The next one's going to be that master services agreement, the consulting agreement. So this is the agreement between, let's say, me and one of my clients, saying that I am going to provide a certain amount of work and deliverables, et cetera, hours at a particular rate, and they agree that they're going to pay me at regular intervals, whatever it is that we agree upon. There's a handful of things that need to be in there. And again, like, these can get as complicated as you want, but for the most part, you're going to have, in no particular order, you're going to have the parties that are involved. So it's going to be the consultant and the client. You're going to have the term of the agreement. So it would be, this is for 12 months. This is for 30 days, whatever it is, a total of 120 hours. You're going to have your statement of work. So this is what's being provided. It's, I will do this. You're going to have this strategy when I'm done with you. You're going to have a plan, whatever it is. The compensation agreement is going to be in there. So it's going to include payments of, I will pay this amount as a client. I will pay my consultant this amount every month, or as invoiced on the 1st and 15th, or whatever it is, whatever the agreement is. Reimbursements will be a part of that. So if I'm, accruing any expenses for the client because I'm doing work for them and I'm paying for something out of my pocket, the reimbursement will be included in there. You definitely want to have a termination clause, because at any point you should be able to end the agreement. So if, as a client, if you're not happy with what's going on, or let's say you lose all of your money in Vegas and you can no longer pay the consultant, then you want to have a way to get out of that, and vice versa. As a consultant, I want to be able to fire my clients if something's just not working. If it's I can't deliver, or they're just a problem client, I want to be able to get out of that agreement. Sometimes these will have, as a consultant, or as a client, you're going to want your consultants to have a certain amount of business insurance and other types of insurance. All of that could vary, but you want to have that requirement in there in case you need it for whatever reason. And then there's a lot of other legalese that'll go in there, but for the most part, those are the main areas that'll be a part of that master services agreement. And depending on the situation, it might be the consultant having the client sign this, or it might be the client having the consultant sign it. So it really depends on that situation. But like with anything that you do, that you sign or whatever, you should make sure to read it and have a professional look at it if you have any questions. Because again, you don't want to, grammar, punctuation, all sorts of little things can mean the world when it comes to lawsuits and all of that. So make sure that somebody reads over it and, you understand it and you're happy with it.